Mr. Speaker, country first, party second. According to the RCMP, the Indian government hired thugs to terrorize Canadians. The Conservatives are laughing about this. I dare the Conservatives to laugh again.
Boy, it looks like Jagmeet's at it again. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the House of Commons as it's finally returned from a week of being off for Constituents Week following Thanksgiving. Now, leading up to this return, there has been a lot happening in the media, as we've all seen, in particular with Trudeau and his Liberal caucus kind of revolting against him. Now, during question period today, Pierre actually brings this up, but to no surprise, Justin's not actually there to answer, so Freeland takes hold, and it doesn't really go so well, so let's take a look.
This weekend in Cloverdale, 15,000 people lined up in the pouring rain for the hopes that they might get a few rejected potatoes. It was Ugly Potato Day in that city, and 15,000 British Columbians are too hungry and desperate that they needed to go and collect those rejected foodstuffs. 2 million Canadians are lined up at food banks. There are 1,400 homeless encampments in Ontario today. And what is the Prime Minister doing? Working to save his political skin from his revolting caucus. This can't go on. Will he call a carbon tax election now?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I would really hope that every single MP in this House would agree that in our great country, no one should ever go hungry. But when Conservatives talk about the most vulnerable, they are crying crocodile tears. And how do I know that, Mr. Speaker? I know that because they have had the gall to vote against a national school food program, a program that will feed 400,000 Canadian kids. How can they look themselves in the face when they oppose feeding Canadian kids?
Yes, that's right.
Holy, I do not miss listening to Freeland. It has been a blessing that they've been off. But as you saw from the video there while Pierre was talking, yeah, a lot of people were lining up in the rain. 15,000. Now, I'm not very familiar with BC and the areas in BC. I had to look up Cloverdale. From what I saw, the population is not that big. It's only about 75,000 individuals. But this is only about half an hour from where all the flash flooding was happening in Coquitlam and the Deep Cove area, which had some pretty substantial damage from all this rainfall, as you're going to see in a second. But this just shows how bad things are, that if you're only about half an hour from where this huge flash flooding they had mudslides, lots of water damage. I think 2 individuals lost their lives. And you're now hunkered down in the rain just so you can get some ugly potatoes, as they call it, or ugly veggies. This is how you know things are getting bad. But this is what I mean about the flash flooding.
When you live on the water, fears of flooding normally come from the ocean, but not in Deep Cove. The skies have now cleared, leaving the damage on full display. 6 homes still under evacuation order as rainwater swelled creeks, sending water gushing down slopes and into now badly damaged houses. But this wasn't the first time the North Shore has been hit, and hit hard. This was the scene a decade ago when a similar storm caused drain systems to fail, flooding homes and a school. After those floods in 2014, the province, feds and district put forward $2.5 million in funding to make areas in Deep Cove and Lynn Valley more resilient. But that wasn't enough to prevent the devastating flooding that ripped through here over the weekend.
Now, as I mentioned, the flash flooding only happened about 30 to 40 minutes away from where this potato event was happening in Cloverdale. And maybe Cloverdale wasn't at risk of getting hit with that much rain. But from the video, it looked like those individuals, the 15,000, were still getting pretty drenched and were risking just standing out there to get a few ugly veggies, which is how you know things are bad. Now, Pierre does a bit of a pivot because Freeland mentioned this school food program. Now, this program really hasn't fed anybody, and Freeland decides to defend it by saying, over the weekend in Manitoba with the Premier Wab Canoe, they gave some snacks, a banana, a milk carton to some children. But the point is, we shouldn't be relying on the government to be feeding our own children. As a father of two, thinking about not being able to provide my children with a lunch or any sort of breakfast before they go to school, while they're at school, is not something I'd want to do. And to be frank, a lot of parents would be able to feed their children if grocery prices weren't so high, if their paycheck gave them a little bit more so that they could buy their own groceries to provide their children with their meals. But instead, the government's not doing anything but slapping a Band-Aid and creating more jobs for themselves by saying, well, we're doing this school food program. And as I said, Pierre challenged her on this.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That program, though it has costed millions, has not fed a single hungry child. It has fed bureaucracy, which is all it ever was intended to do. Meanwhile, 2 million people are lined up at food banks. We've got 15,000 people that will line up for a, quote, ugly potato because they can't afford to eat. We have diseases like scurvy that are back. And 1 in 4 kids go to school hungry after 9 years of this Prime Minister, yet his priority is saving his political career from his revolting caucus. This cannot go on. Will he call a carbon tax election?
Now, before we get into Freeland's terrible response, where she openly admits that they've been providing these children with poor man's food, essentially bannock, which is just flour and water, and now they get to dress it up with some jam and butter. But the article that was written there by CP24 about the rise of scurvy due to high grocery prices is something that we might be seeing more and more of. And CTV actually did a little coverage on this where they said the exact same thing, as you're going to see here.
People usually think of sailors from the 18th century when they think of a disease like scurvy, but it still occurs today and is linked to growing food insecurity across this country.
The disease, which develops after prolonged vitamin C deficiency, still exists today. The report draws links between scurvy and growing food insecurity, when people who can't afford groceries either skip meals or buy cheaper, less nutritional items.
It really was canned foods, highly processed foods only that this person was consuming.
A Stats Can report shows in 2023, food insecurity was 22.9%, up from 18.4% the year before.
With higher food prices, people have decided to leave the periphery of the store where you find fresh produce, when you find a lot of vitamins and minerals, and people will go to the center of the store to find anything to eat.
And so when you hear reports like this coming out, it's to no surprise that 15,000 people are willing to wait in the rain for a couple of ugly looking potatoes and carrots and what other kind of veggies they could get their hand on, because they simply can't afford nutritious food. But if you listen to Freeland, she's providing these children with, as I said, poor man's food, bannock, as well as a banana and a milk carton, jam, butter. These kids should be ever so lucky that the government is helping.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are damning themselves with their own words. I was at a school in downtown Winnipeg on Friday. I was there with Premier Wab Kinew, and we gave those beautiful, wonderful children some bannock, a little carton of milk, some jam, some butter, and a banana. That was not bureaucracy that fed those kids. That was the deal we've done with Manitoba. The Conservatives are just feeding kids.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Are you kidding me? She says that the Canadians should be happy that while 1 in 4 kids go to school hungry, while 2 million people line up at food banks, while scurvy is making a comeback after 9 years of this government, Canadians should be grateful that she showed up with a few snacks and a photo op at one school. Mr. Speaker, this is the same finance minister who has just blown back $7 billion past her deficit target, meaning more inflation and higher rates. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister hides in the fetal position under his desk. Will he call a carbon tax election now?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we have clearly knocked the Leader of the Opposition off his game this week. Because how can he have the temerity to talk about actual meals fed to actual children as bureaucracy? That tells you how cynical and how low these Canadians go. And then he talks about inflation. Mr. Speaker, it's been in the Bank of Canada's target range for 9 months in a row. It fell below 2% in September, and rates have come down 3 times. That's what's happening with inflation, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, this woman is just so unbelievable. I really don't get whoever votes for liberals or listens to these guys. Like, even the mainstream media has reported on this exact topic. Food prices continue to outpace inflation in Canada. When was this written? Just a few days ago, last week, October 15th. Inflation might be cooling, but fall barbecues are still going to burn your wallet. For the second straight month, grocery prices in Canada rose faster than the inflation rate, and beef in particular is significantly pricier than it was last year. So she can go on and on and on, literally till the cows come home, about inflation's been going down for this many months, yada, yada, yada. People still cannot afford what is important: food, housing, heating, gas. Nobody can afford any of these things because of how expensive you've made it with the carbon tax. And the Bank of Canada has backed that up multiple times by saying, yes, inflation has come down in the consumerism side in terms of shopping for clothes and buying this and buying that, but housing, shelter, groceries still outpace and outweigh the other side of the scale. And as Canadians clearly can see that. So no matter what she wants to sprinkle on this little song and dance of hers, that's not the case. Now, unfortunately, this is where Pierre ended for question period. He wasn't there anymore. But Melissa Landsman did kind of go toe-to-toe with Freeland for a while till Freeland decided not to stand up. But as you saw from the opening clip there, when it was Jagmeet's turn to talk, he gave this weird Canada first, party second spiel, which you heard all the conservatives erupt in laughter. He's still trying to play this tough guy card. During question period, he kept addressing the fact that Pierre still hasn't got his clearance, and this is after his former leader of the NDP, Tom Mulcair, has gone on national television saying Pierre's doing the right thing and that he's not falling into Trudeau's trap. But Jagmeet, again, is on this weird Canada first, party second spiel, which this guy is the last hypocrite that should be saying any of that, because he's not Canada first, he's not party first or party second, he's Jagmeet first, and that's it. He's holding on to that pension, he's waiting for that pension to roll around, and he actually had the audacity to say today that when the federal election rolls around, it's going to be as close as the BC provincial election is right now with the NDP and the Conservatives.
What lessons are you going to take from, the aftermath of the BC election? Clearly, there's appetite for conservative rule there that we haven't seen recently.
There's going to be a lot of lessons we're going to evaluate and learn from the campaign, but I think generally what we're seeing is there's a fight for the future of our country, and I saw in the BC election similarly what the fight will be for us at the federal level.
This guy's absolutely delusional. They're currently projected to be in third place behind the Bloc. But yeah, Jagmeet's going to be neck and neck with Pierre, I'm sure. But as always, this is just my opinion. I'd love to hear from you guys, so let me know what you thought about all this in the comment section below. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. It does help the channel a lot. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.